And I say that we believe the outcomes of this dialogue are really valuable for providing the vision, sort of the bigger vision of where we need to go in terms of sustainable infrastructure that David alluded to. And I think from our perspective, this is really important because whereas, for example, there's a sort of a broad understanding in the energy sector that we need to transform our energy use and where our sources are to more renewable, efficient technologies, we haven't had that sort of similarly transformative model within water infrastructure. And so this dialogue helped put some of that together. And so the contribution of the dialogue, I really think, was being able for the whole group to take a step back and say the bigger picture, where is it we want to go before we get into the details of exactly how we get there. And so, looking not just at the pie, but sort of what sort of pie do we want, or a different kind of dessert, or what is really that big picture. So I'm going to start out just by summarizing for everyone the three principles that animate the report, and then others will follow with different specific parts of the report. And so the first principle that's really critical to this dialogues report is that water infrastructure must be defined more broadly and holistically. And that means that, so in addition to what we typically think of as water infrastructure, the pipes, the treatment plants that are so important, that water infrastructure must also include the natural ecosystems that provide these services, so including floodplains, wetlands, small streams, and also technology, small-scale technologies that can help mimic our natural systems. So looking at ways, essentially, to protect, restore, and replicate our natural systems in order to provide clean and safe water. And so I think sort of the implication that what this means that's further defined in the report is that we really have to work to protect these systems. And so that includes protecting source water watersheds, integrating green roofs, low-impact development techniques, water reuse to reduce flooding, combined sewer overflows, stormwater in a more integrated fashion than really we have in the past. And I think, all of us here may work with or know of some great examples around the country. We have a number of communities who are already leading the way to do this, and you know them as well as I do. Certainly Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Portland, and many others are doing this. But we realized that to really make this the norm instead of the exception, we had to redefine infrastructure so everyone would consider it in that way. One other note sort of on this first principle, I think the participants really had the understanding that there are a lot of underlying factors, one of which I wanted to point out, just that the understanding that climate change is affecting water resources and will continue to do so, and just that this sort of sustainable infrastructure approach had an important role to play in helping communities adapt to climate change by providing some more flexible tools and solutions to our water systems. The second principle is what we refer to as a sustainable path. Wally's going to talk more specifically about what that means. We defined it as a set of 20 elements that, and there would be a shared responsibility to try to reach what we're calling the sustainable path for utilities as well as the federal government and state governments, all the players along the line. So the responsibilities for achieving the sustainable path will vary based on what level of water management entity you're at. And so, for example, we said that at the local level, there's a real responsibility for taking a lead on pricing, full cost pricing to cover capital cost replacement, as well as some of the watershed services we talked about. At the national level, similarly, the federal government has an important role in the sustainable path in terms of prioritizing its investment and moving us towards this 21st century development and the investments this makes, as well as enforcing environmental and health standards, setting those standards, and providing subsidized loans and loan guarantees. So there's roles for everyone in trying to move with intention towards a sustainable path. Finally, the third principle sort of flows from the first one. I think, saying that we have this broad sense of what sustainable water infrastructure is, that basically necessitates a watershed approach, one that really integrates drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater. So we're not considering them separately, but how can we use them most efficiently and within the watershed context. And so we didn't, I think recommendations 2 through 5 really address this watershed concept, and we did not endorse any specific regulatory changes, but set us on a path to trying to figure out how we get to those in a shared fashion. Importantly, we also decided that watershed management really needs to make sure that everyone actively addresses sources of pollution, degradation, and depletion of water resources together. So I'm going to stop there, and those are basically the 3 principles. And I would just say that although this dialogue neither endorses or prejudices any specific policy options or funding for the sustainable water infrastructure, I think these principles can be applied regardless and should be applied to all funding sources, whatever they happen to be. And certainly, additionally, just from my own perspective, I think that these principles also have broader policy implications, and whether we're talking about climate change adaptation, ensuring a safe and consistent water supply, or reducing stormwater and combined sewer overflows, these principles can be extremely useful.